Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. What a beautiful video. We're so grateful for your partnership. And before I get started, we just recognize you have a lot to do. Thank you for coming to Seattle. Today, if Brad zoomed out and gave you a big picture, I want to zoom in and I want to talk about the last 4 months. The last 4 months have been an absolutely pivotal time when it comes to the power of AI. And so I want to just zoom in and talk about two really big ideas. First, I'm going to call digital labor. Now, the term is still emerging right now, but I'm going to assert something that I think is really important with the rise of the new, what we call reasoning models. And I'll talk more about these in a moment. We now have AI, I'm going to assert to you, that can perceive, understand, summarize, identify patterns, create reasoned plans, solve problems, think analytically, make decisions even as well or better than humans. You'll have to suspend disbelief for just a moment. I'll show you some data points, but I'm going to assert that. And then the second big idea that really has come to the forefront over this last 4-month period, so starting in December, is that we can now package those things up into modules that the industry, the world, is calling AI agents. And for our purposes today, for the demos that we'll do, an agent is a system that combines perception, cognition, and action to perform a task or a job that we previously needed a human because of its complexity to perform. Now, you may not believe these two things, so let me at least show you 3 data points that I think are very compelling. These are 3 benchmarks that have recently been cleared by the latest models from OpenAI, who continues to be the leader in this field. We've had LLMs, large language models, now for about 2 years, a little over 2 years since we saw ChatGPT hit the scene. But over the last 4 months, we have been introduced to what we now call reasoning models, models that can analytically reason, that have been trained in different ways. So let's take a look at these 3 benchmarks. The first is called the GPQA, the graduate level Google Proof Q&A test. It's meant to be very difficult for both humans and AI. You can see that PhDs with access to the internet, they get on average about 1/3 of the questions right outside of their specialty. Within their specialty, they get about 80% of the questions right. Well, the latest model, called O3 from OpenAI, achieved 87% on the GPQA, beating human experts for the first time. The next one has to do with what we have known for a couple of years now has been a weak spot in LLMs, and that is math and analytical thinking. This is called frontier math. It's a set of very difficult math problems created by mathematicians to be incredibly hard to solve for anyone. Indeed, no AI had ever scored over 2%, as you see here, until O3, again, in the last 60 days, got 25% right. Now, it's not 100%, but you can see the trajectory. The final baseline and benchmark we'll look at is an AGI, or a generalized intelligence benchmark. And this ARC-AGI, as you can see here, is a famous test. It's a very fluid intelligence test. It's meant to be easy for people, but difficult for machines. But again, O3, taking this test, beat all previous AIs, and for the first time, beat the baseline human level on the test, scoring an 87.5. What's more impressive is we don't see things leveling off. We have not hit diminishing returns yet as we continue to see these reasoning models go. So we could talk a long time about these things, but now I want to translate this into what I'm seeing in the field as I work with customers from all sorts of different walks of life, and talk to you about how things have evolved over the last 2 years. First, the LLMs, starting about 2 years ago when we introduced Copilot, were focused on what I will call a scenario of personal productivity. The name Copilot is meant to indicate that this is an assistant that is designed to help you save time. And indeed, it continues to very well. Today, we feel great about someone who is Copilot aware being able to save 20, 30, sometimes in excess of 40 hours a month. This is truly tremendous, we think, progress for this scenario. But we didn't stop there. Over the last year or so, we've been very focused on building that out to help organizations do what we call process redesign. You heard a little bit of that in the nonprofit that was on before me. Looking at an end-to-end process like matching, thinking about how that process works and then streamlining it, taking out waste and inserting AI where you can to move things forward. Now, as I work with companies to do this, we are focused often on just going across the general functions of an organization, things like customer service or finance or marketing, where we see that there's incredible opportunity for process redesign. In fact, in the companies that I work with, we're seeing millions, sometimes tens of millions, in the extreme cases, hundreds of millions of dollars of savings as they do process redesign with AI, particularly with AI agents. But the thing that has changed most in the last 4 months has been the emergence of a new class, if you will, a new scenario in organizations that I will just simply call digital labor. It is that without redesigning your processes and independent of what an individual does for his or her job, that you can actually start to augment your capabilities and your capacity with agents that act like humans, that can actually do the work you otherwise would have outsourced to humans or brought humans in or had to pay for humans to do. And it is these three classes, personal productivity, digital labor, and process redesign, that represent kind of the cutting edge of how organizations all across the world are now starting to employ the great technology, especially the great technology of the reasoning models over these last 4 months. All right, so let's go from here into how all this is playing out right now. Well, we can't always predict the future, but because the future is often with us but unevenly distributed, this slide represents probably the very best articulation, the very best summary I can give you of where are organizations going, regardless of whether you are for-profit or not-for-profit. These are the levels, the stages of AI transformation that we're seeing. Most organizations start on the left-hand side with a human plus, in our case, a Copilot, another agent meant to help them get their job done. Over time, we see humans having multiple agents. You'll see that in some of the demos where they can use these agents to get things done. And then you start to see a big leap as we move into level 3 and level 4. You actually see in the first case, AI agents running entire teams of other agents. So with human oversight, AI agents running teams to take care of processes or of deliverables. And then finally, the stage that we see right now, kind of in its infancy, is agent first entirely over entire departments or functions with human oversight. This is how it's developing. And it's developing this way because of that digital labor concept I introduced in the beginning. Today, we truly have models that can think, reason, solve problems, make decisions as well or better than humans. It's moving so very fast. Now, what do you do about this? How do you kind of take advantage of these things? Well, from our perspective, we have a vision of where this is all going. We would say it this way. In every organization of every type all around the world, we believe that people will have a Copilot. That Copilot will be a digital assistant and understand them, understand what they're trying to accomplish, understand the context of the organization that they work in, the context of the industry or the mission. But that's not enough. We've learned over the last 2 years that's not enough. You also have to add a set of agents, agents that can help people to use their Copilot to get more done. In a rough analogy, we would say it this way. In the mobile world, there was the smartphone and there were apps. You added apps to a smartphone to modularly add capabilities. Well, in this world, the AI era, there's a Copilot and there are agents. You add agents to modularly add capabilities to your Copilot so that it can do things like accounts receivable or marketing or donor communications in ways that it couldn't do without specialized information, knowledge, or expertise. Now, Microsoft, we're trying to do two things. We're trying to create Copilot as what we would call a UI for AI, and then create a platform for AI makers so that you can go make, manage, govern all of those agents that soon will be an important part of the way you run your organization. In January, we introduced a new product, one that I think will be particularly interesting for this audience. It's called Copilot Chat. It combines really three things. First is a very important value prop. It's free. Free, secure AI chat that is based on GPT-4o and web grounded. We'll see this in just 2 seconds. It is always free. It is one of the best ways to raise the AI capability and skill level of your organization. You can get started with this today. It's free. It also offers IT controls, like what we call enterprise data protection and governance controls. And if you would like, you can introduce agents on a pay-as-you-go or consumption basis in the middle. But you get to determine whether or not you want to turn that on. This, for us, is a great leveler. This is something that we have done to essentially, as we think of what Brad was saying, to raise the skill level all across the world of people that we think should start to interact with AI. Now, why don't we just take a moment, and I'd love to just show you this in action so you can see what can Copilot Chat do for you? What's possible? So this is Copilot Chat, the free, secure GPT-4o web-grounded product that we talked about earlier. I'm going to stay in that web environment right here, and I'm just going to do a couple of quick things. First, I'm just going to show you what it looks like when you ask Copilot Chat something that it already knows about. In this case, I'm going to ask it how a graphics processing unit, or GPU, works. I'll send that query, that prompt in, and you'll see it does something that is very important. Using its own training, it gives me a great response back, just like something like ChatGPT would, and it summarizes as well. A GPU, or graphics processing unit, has, for instance, parallel processing, shaders, memory, a rendering pipeline, and I can continue to ask questions. You'll see that there are no references here because this pulled entirely on the model itself. It didn't need to refer to anything else. Now, let's take a look and see when I ask it a little bit more complex question. I'm going to come here, and just so you don't have to watch me type all this out, we'll ask, what can you tell me about what's called model distillation in the context of training LLMs? You might know nothing about this. Very few of people in the world did before DeepSeek. But DeepSeek taught us all about model distillation. And it's a new method of essentially building or constructing an LLM. You'll see it's a technique used to transfer knowledge from a large, complex model, it says, the teacher, to a smaller, more efficient model, the student. You'll see that it explains how it works, but what's more, if we come down to the bottom, you'll see that it actually has gone out to the web, found information on this topic, and summarized it using the model. So its own knowledge combined with the knowledge on the web, complete with a reference so I can see what's happening. But it doesn't stop here. I can also query specific data. So as an example, I just wanted to quickly show you this Excel spreadsheet. It's very straightforward. This is the type of thing you'd see for just about any organization. It's transactions with a transaction ID, a category for each transaction, revenue, the number of units, the spend, the region. It's not very long for our demo purposes. It's just a couple about 50 lines long, but this can be as long as you want it to be. Let me just cut out of this so I can actually use it. I'll go back over to Copilot Chat, and I'll actually upload that file. There it is. And it will take a moment, and then I will ask it a question. I'll ask this. How many fast chargers were sold in the West region? We'll give it a second to reply. You'll see it says executing task because it's pulling on a skill inherent within Copilot Chat. We called that code generation, and it says that there were 330 units. Now, we might want to ask it something like this. Can you explain how you came up with that answer? It'll take a moment and process it, and it'll give us a sense of exactly what it did. It says, sure, I extracted the data, I filtered the data, I summed the units, and here are the specific entries from that spreadsheet. It gives me 330. What you're starting to see is not just regurgitation or summary, you're starting to see logical, analytical thought. In this case, it's using code behind the scenes to do something that's pretty complex. The free product, everything I've shown you is free, can be used to do just about all of the tasks that someone would do every day, and to even focus on the files and data that is within your organization. Everything that's uploaded to Copilot Chat is secure. It's kept within a boundary of what we call the tenant, where, for instance, if you're using M365 today, your email or your team's messages are started. Let's do one last thing as we switch over to show you a little bit more about Copilot Chat. I'm gonna ask it this question. Still in the web scope, can you help me get ready for my day? Now here in the web scope, it's gonna say, sure, here's what I'd recommend. Check your schedule, prepare your workspace, set your goals, healthy start. I mean, things that someone with no context of what I was doing would want to, would give me. I'm gonna switch over now to what's called the work scope. And in the work scope, all of a sudden I give Copilot Chat access to all of my work data, my calendar, my emails, everything like that. And I'll ask the same question. Can you help me get ready for my day? In this case, we'll ask about tomorrow. Now what it's going to do is go in and check the calendar, and you'll see that it will find something more than just generic, prepare the workspace. It's going to find all sorts of things that are on my calendar. And you'll see I have travel that starts at 6:45. I've got some other events that I'll be speaking at, a CHRO discussion goes in, and I can even go back and look at some of those specifics. You'll see as an example, here are some additional relevant emails and files. and I can ask about specifics. I can come in and say, sure, can you help me get ready for that CHRO event? And it will go in deep now and pull out a whole bunch of different data. I had a meeting on this that was recorded. There were some prep documents that my team has put together for me. It will find all of that, and in relation to that particular calendar entry, it will give me everything I need. An event overview. This is really my stuff, by the way. This isn't a demo. It is a demo, but it's my stuff in the demo. And it gives me a great view of key details you can see, including links, the meeting structure and agenda, additional resources. I mean, just like an assistant, it helps me get ready for things. Now, in the interest of time, I want to show you just a couple more demos, so I'm going to go on and frame a couple of things. But what you're seeing here is Copilot Chat really start to become an interface for all the work that we expect employees to do. This is an example of a person using an agent, a special agent. Special agent, that's interesting. A very unique agent, we'll say, that can help you to get your job done. All right, let's switch over for a moment and talk a little bit more about that second part of our value prop. Because here I want to show you some really interesting demos. That part of the value prop, as we move over from Copilot Chat, has to do with a platform for AI makers, and specifically a platform in which you can build, obtain, and use agents. Again, we think of Copilot kind of like a smartphone. It's good. It does amazing things, but it can't do everything. So as you add more capabilities, you do so by adding modules, and we call those modules agents. So let's talk a little bit about what we do. Our platform solution for you, for the whole world, is called Copilot Studio. It is a no-code or low-code platform that allows even end users to start to build their own agents. You can build a very simple agent literally in 5 to 6 minutes by pointing it at a SharePoint repository that has content in it and giving it instructions and telling it what to do. You can also, though, build very sophisticated agents. Makers can build these sophisticated agents that are incredibly sophisticated in what they can do. We think of it this way. Agents for us range from what we call retrieval, prompt and response agents, all the way over to autonomous, where you start to get very sophisticated use cases, where these agents can act on their own under the direction or being overseen by a human. Now for this, I want to show you a couple of these. And this one, I'm actually going to rewind if the sound doesn't work for you, but I'm going to show you one of my favorite agents created by the team. This agent actually inserts itself into Teams, and it's called the interpreter agent. And what happens here happens so fast that I need to explain it just for a moment. This particular agent actually sits up in the cloud, and you'll see us configure it in just a moment. These are really my teammates. They recorded this so that I could show it to you. They're going to go in and configure this agent, turn it on, and tell it what language they would like to hear the spoken words being translated or interpreted into. Now, at the bottom there, you'll see a member of my team who speaks Spanish, native Spanish. He's going to speak in Spanish. The coolest thing about this agent is it sends the data up to the cloud, but at the same time it does that, it samples the individual's voice and then will give us his voice back in the target language. So you actually hear him, but speaking a language that he may or may not speak. So the first click here, we'll just show you how you set this up. You come over to language and speech, you turn on the interpreter agent, you choose the interpretation language. So we're going to choose to hear English. And then we tested the audio backstage, and so I hope this comes up. Here we go.
Necesitamos revisar el progreso del proyecto. ¿Pueden por favor decirnos cómo van las tareas? We've reviewed the progress of the project. Can you please tell us how the tasks we should take are going?
It's incredible. It's incredible. I speak Chinese and learned as a kid, but it was still hard, even as a kid. But a couple of months ago, we ran this. I was like, Nicole, she's a woman on my team. I was like, Nicole, come do this with me. And I said, I just want to hear you speak Chinese. And we ran this thing, and Nicole was speaking Chinese. It was absolutely, like in her voice, speaking Mandarin Chinese to me. I had never seen anything like it. Now, there is a lag, by the way. You saw that there's a little bit of a lag. There's roughly about a 5-second lag, because it's got to go to the cloud, samples the voice, and comes back down. But increíble is what I'd say. Like, it is incredible. Okay, now we're going to switch over to another type of agent as I finish up the presentation and just show you 2 agents we just announced last night from a stage in Seoul. Our CEO, Satya Nadella, was there. We've been prepping the world for these. These are going to be game changers. For the first agent, I need to explain what's going on. These are our first digital labor agents. The first one is called Researcher. What we essentially did was take the O3, the most advanced model from OpenAI, and we did what's called reinforcement learning post-training. That's a fancy way of saying we took its smarts, its reasoning, and then we showed it how to do the work of a particular type of job. And in this case, it would be an associate researcher, someone that would go and crawl across data sources at the speed of light and pull stuff back together. Let me just show you how this works. We'll start first by going to Select Researcher up at the top right. This is the interface that you get. Then you can enter in a prompt. This is built on kind of some of the deep reasoning stuff you will have seen from ChatGPT. You can see it's a fairly long prompt. It's develop a product strategy for us to enter the outdoor and adventure market. And here we tell it, use all the existing data you have to get a sense of our potential place in the market, and do your own external research to connect our potential strategy with the broader market. So you're giving the instructions like you would a human. Then what you'll see next is the beginning of a real change in how these agents will function. Researcher thinks and gives this back. I understand you'd like a product strategy to make sure I fully grasp your needs. Oh, how I wish every direct report did this. I have just a couple of quick clarifications, and it asks some questions about scope and format. Let me know if you'd like to go ahead with just my best judgment. And we can respond here, and so we'll say, hey, let me scope, I want a higher level strategic plan format in between. It's gotta be easy and readable by my execs. Off it goes. Now, what is so cool about these agents is they don't just go off and work in a corner. They actually tell you first what they're going to do, and then they start to do it, and you can observe them as they do it. It is important to note here, though, that they don't come back in 20 seconds. Sometimes this will take a few minutes, sometimes it will take 10 minutes, sometimes it will take 20 minutes. It's really going off like a person would do, but it's doing its tasks at the speed of light, which makes it very different. See here, it's starting to tell us what it's doing, and now we get the output. The output is given to me as a report. You see this on the right side. This isn't faked. This is the real report that comes up. We'll just run through the report so you can see what it looks like. At this point, I've stopped asking for folks who are junior on the team to do research projects for us, because as we've been using it over the last couple of weeks, first got my hands on it, man, it's starting to prove to change the way we work. The first time I have used digital labor in a way that I really feel like, man, that's gonna truly change how the work flows in the organization. That's a post-trained model focused on a particular job, in this case, research, which is very valuable. Now I want to show you one last post-trained model. This one blew my mind the first time I see it. Every time I show it to customers, I'm still like, man, what year is it? Like, where are we? It's a post-trained model with reinforcement learning, but it is, in this case, optimized for data, and optimized for data in Excel workbooks. So what it does, and here it's going to go through, and we'll just show you the Excel workbook. This is a little bit longer than the data set I showed you previously, so we'll just go through it. You can see this is monthly recurring revenue by customer, that second tab, and a customer list along with customer IDs. It's just a bunch of data. You'd have to make sense of this as a human analyst to figure out what's going on. This analyst has been trained with chain of thought inputs to understand how to make sense of large, complex data sets. So we're going to go over first to the analyst agent. We will pull it up. We will then enter in. First, we'll point it to the place that we want it to look at, and that will be the data set. Same type of thing you saw me before with Copilot Chat, but in this case now with advanced reasoning is the way to think about it. Then I'll enter in something that is a kind of pretty amorphous description of what I want to do. Can you look at the data I've shared and give me insights on customer segments along with a graph to visualize? I might say that to, a data analyst. And then I set it off to do its work. Now in this case, it will also show me what it's up to. It will analyze the file data. You'll see it working, importing the data. And I just love this part. Like I could sit here and watch this forever and ever because it literally is thinking. It goes through, as you can see, the sheet structure, the sheets. It thinks about how to map clusters. It can go in and out of blind alleys as it explores things, coming back up. And right now, the model I have is a little bit more behind the scenes, the way you see here. It talks to itself. It says, well, that didn't work. Let me go back and check something else. It's really incredible. Continues to motor on. Here it's working through the visualization. And what's happening in the background here is that it's using the same skill I was showing kind of in the wild a moment ago, but it is essentially writing Python code in the background. So as we watch this come up, we can actually expand any one of these steps to see the code that it wrote And then you can see on what's labeled as dev box there, what came out. So it's kind of talking to itself, reasoning, and using a skill of writing and executing the code to actually make this all happen. Now, to watch it complete here, we'll go through and it will complete the tasks. Gives me, in this particular case, just a view of those segments. So you can see a growth segment, a term distribution, region distribution, and then finally it will give me a visualization because it can plot. It can do anything that you can do with Python code. And so it can pull things together in a way that is really, really powerful. We'll just take a look as we end up here. And we'll zoom out for a second. You can see what it can do. The first two agents in our ecosystem now applied, to jobs that humans would do, but in a digital labor type of way. Okay, so let me just sum it all up. The last 4 months have been absolutely critical. 2 years ago, we were astounded by the fact that these LLMs could do language. Now they're starting to be able to pick up post-trained specific skills that can replace, in a digital labor format, what humans can do. To be clear, I'm not standing on a stage to tell you that means the end of humans. I'm not going to tell you there are data analysts who are going to have hat in hand at the street corner saying, put out of work by data analysts by Microsoft. We don't think that at all. We think there are more problems to solve than there are people to solve them. We think there's more work to be done than you can afford and I can afford. We see this adding capacity to the world so that you can do more of what you want to do as you work on your mission, so that we can do more to solve the most pressing problems of humanity. I'll end where I started. We are so grateful that you have spent your time with us today. What a journey we're on. Brad gave you the broad arc of where we are. If you zoom in on the last 4 months alone, you start to see technology that clearly is going to change the economy, organizations, jobs, education, governments, just about everything, every structure we use to organize people and to get things done. We can't wait to go solve the world's problems with you. Thank you very much.